What's up, everyone? I'm Evelyn, and this is Reppin. Thanks so much for being here. So, what does it really mean to win if you still don't feel like you belong? Today, I sit down with long drive golf champion Alexis Belton. She is a force in the game, redefining what success looks like and who gets to feel like they belong in it. And underneath it all, it's about something bigger: how privilege and access shape every space we walk into and decide who feels at home and who's still trying to catch up. Alexis also works with the One Campaign, a global organization focused on expanding access to health and economic opportunity across Africa. And that idea of access is at the center of everything Alexis does. This isn't just about golf. It's about community, belonging, and what it really takes to stop waiting for permission and start building your own space. Here's my conversation with Alexis Belton.
There's so many moments, even playing on tour, where I'm crying. I don't feel like I fit in. I don't feel like I'm a part.
Rough and rugged.
Represent NY, hold it down for my peeps. New York, New York. We rep the hardest. Hardcore.
Nobody harder.
Let them know. That's the way we rock it. Show me what you got.
Alexis, how are you doing?
Doing great. It's a Friday. Every time Friday comes around, I think about that old song, Rebecca Black or something. It's like Friday. And it's so bad that still is stuck with me till this day, but it always brings joy. So it's a great day.
I'm glad you got that song stuck in my head now, too.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you have it now? How's your Friday?
It's a great song, but it would be great if it just stopped looping in my head.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Anytime.
Thank you so much also for being here. You're an incredible athlete. And I think going beyond that is, I think, how much you've done with your platform. And I want to sort of get into that. First and foremost, you're involved in multiple efforts to create a positive impact. Talk to me a little bit about your interest and affiliation with the organization called One, what it is, what they're doing, and why you were interested in being a part of this organization.
One, to start off and to finish with one, the things that I've learned through athletics is it means absolutely nothing to have a platform and not make change. And with sports being one of the number one, how do you say it, languages to connect with people, and in this age that we're in with AI and media and all those things, there's so much things that you can do as an athlete or in athletics to connect with one another and to build and create change. And so One is an advocacy organization that fights for healthier lives and economic opportunities in Africa. And there's so many amazing things that are going on in Africa right now that I think people just don't realize. One, they have the youngest population globally. So I think 70% or so of the population of Africa is under the age of 30. And then you add that with what sports can do, the beauty of Africa and how they are and will continue to be one of the biggest game changers within the world. It is hands down one of the reasons why whenever One called and asked me to be a part of their creative council, I said yes. And figuring out a way for me who loves golf and has seen golf be that connective point for people to use golf as that tool to help spread the message and be a part of that change.
I think they're really a great organization, and they're really doing everything they can to make a positive impact, certainly in Africa. Now, specifically, your involvement with One is the Creative Council. Tell me a little bit about that specific section of One and what it was that was appealing to you.
Yeah, I think going back to, how they started, you have Bono, who's one of the founders, and seeing that major impact of getting the world on board with making the change of health and the welfare. And then now the Creative Council, to be a part of something with so many amazing people. Like every time I'm on a call with the group, I am like, am I worthy enough to be on this? And the easy yes was literally because we are all sitting at the table bringing our expertise together and figuring out ways to, whether that is a dinner, whether that's an event, whether that we take a trip, how do we best use our creative minds to help build and grow the advocacy of one and what they're doing for Africa as a whole.
I think that's interesting that you brought up a point is when you jump on a call and you see so many, I mean, you have a like who's list in this group. What does it feel like to see that, I guess, Zoom call, to understand that you are a part of this community of incredible athletes, artists? For you, when you kind of get on that call, can you tell me a little bit about like what's going through your head and what it feels like? Because I'm imagining, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but for me, recently I found an Asian community that I feel like I can relate to, and it feels great to understand that I'm walking into a group of people who innately get nuances that I don't need to explain. And I didn't realize that I had that absence and how that sort of impacted me. So for you, when you're getting on this call with the Creative Council and seeing who's on, can you talk a little bit about what that felt like for you and what that moment was that sort of stayed with you and you connected with?
It's really interesting being African American and being on a council with so many first generation or Africans just in general, and still feeling like I've maneuvered around not feeling like I have a home. And even growing up here in the States and this being everything that I know, my family is so big on the family tree and try to figure out who's related to who and where's this connection point. There's a Belton, South Carolina. Do we have a connection in Louisiana? What does that look like? What's our origin? What's our roots? And to be on a call and there's this mixed feeling of out of place, but home for the first time. When I have traveled to Kenya, I spent a lot of time in Kenya and Nairobi. I get that feeling and I feel connected to something. And watching, being on a call with these groups of people, and I was just on the phone with Jabulu the other day, it's like, oh, you guys are so successful in what you've done, not because obviously they are just like born ridiculously talented. I do think that some people have it. Their success comes from, how do we make this world a better place? How do we advocate for those who don't have the same platform? And how do I use this talent in order to serve others versus how do I use this talent to serve me? I think Africa as a whole has that beautiful communal tie of we live for one another. And I think that's the cool thing, as it's like the booming place for tech, the booming place for entrepreneurs. I think a lot of that success comes from community. And so being on those calls, it feels like the first couple of minutes, I'm like, I don't belong here. And by the end of the call, I'm like, this is home.
That's an incredible and also contradictory feeling at the same time, isn't it?
It
weird?
is.
It's kind of weird. It's super weird, but it's super powerful too. I think one of the overarching themes that you just mentioned for me that I'm picking up on is the idea of visibility. Obviously, you're Black, I'm Chinese. We're not hiding that. I mean,
Can't hide it.
But I think one of the themes is really about visibility. And I think the idea of you being an outsider, and also I understand that too, because I am an outsider as well, just being, Chinese in America and being a person of color. Between those two themes, I think it's really interesting because you are a world-class athlete. You are a champion in golf, in long drive. And I'm going to be very honest with you, Alexis. I knew nothing about golf, and I still don't know anything about golf. I tried golf once, miniature golf, and I didn't realize how painfully frustrating it was that I picked up the ball and threw it in the hole. I couldn't do it. And I know that mentally says something to you. I know that.
That says that's a hole in one. If you threw it in the hole, I'm like, oh, you got a hole in one. That's impressive.
Well, I dunked it. I used my hand and dunked it.
Love it.
Your involvement in golf started because a teacher in high school said to you, you get free food, you could pick your outfits, and you get to miss school. Which, by the way, who would say no to that? But because I am coming in as an outsider into golf, and you're obviously the insider, golf to me seems like a very expensive, privileged, elite sport, and some of that might be stereotype. I don't know. You tell me. But for you, when you walked into a golf course, what did it feel like for you in terms of that experience for Alexis to walk onto a golf course?
Yeah, it is so funny. I remember going to the country club for the first time and not knowing where. My mom dropped me off because I was in high school, and just standing there like, so where do I go? What do I do? And I think that phrase in itself, where do I go? What do I do? Stuck with me very long as I was trying to understand the politics of golf, the dynamics of golf, and how to not get kicked out. I mean, golf has traditionally felt like a sport where you walk in fear of getting kicked out because there's so many rules, but unwritten rules at the same time. And I think how I fell in love with the game was, I remember being at the chipping green. We were just practicing some short shots with the team, and all the kids started juggling the golf ball. And it is just that one trick that I really want to do. You're just taking the ball and you're hitting it consistently on the club face of a wedge several times. And I thought, that is so cool. And they weren't great at it. Obviously, they all beat me in golf. I was really new to the sport. But it did a couple of things. The game of golf did a couple of things for me in the first moment of introduction. One, it sparked my competitive mode of like, oh, that's really cool. I can't beat you all on the course, but maybe I can beat you in this. And I learned that skill overnight and did it. And I was like, I'm in love with the game of golf. And most people will tell you, you fall in love with golf by finding the center of the club face. The first time you hit it, you want to do it again. But the other part that helped me to get over the barriers that I thought existed, because I think some of the barriers that exist also are part of those unwritten rules.
Like what?
I would say you're supposed to have your shirt tucked. You're supposed to walk in with a certain way. You're supposed to communicate to this person and that person. You learn along the way that some of those things are just preferences for people. And then also you learn that these are great skills to have in the business world, in your day-to-day, of how to greet people when you walk in, how to do X, Y, and Z. But the thing that made me fall in love with golf is truly the game. And where the game is placed is what makes it feel like it's not accessible. But the game in itself teaches you patience. It teaches you how to pivot. If you have a bad shot off the tee and you're making a decision and now you're behind a tree, do you try and hit it through the tree, or are you going to pivot, take your medicine, and say, I'm okay with getting a bogey on this hole and pursue a better score on the next hole? And so I think why every athlete transitions to it after they play their respected sport is because of what it can teach you and how you can discover yourself while you play it.
There's a lot of things that you just said that I want to get to, because again, I know nothing about golf
Yeah.
other than you walk around, it's expensive, and I didn't know how freaking hard it was.
Yes.
You said having access to that. I want to talk about what that means for someone who has no frame of reference. Also, your sense of competition in terms of, I guess there has to be some switch in your brain, obviously as an athlete, to feel competitive, to go, okay, I want to beat you at that, versus being daunted with the unspoken rules of access. And I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, or you disagree, privilege to be in a place that feels very, very exclusive for a specific group of people. And again, let me just preface, audience, don't come for me here, this is just a stereotype from someone who knows nothing about the sport, but feels that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Is definitely not just a stereotype, but there's a lot of truth to it, because I think at some point, golf did not originate to be a game for the privileged. It was, birthed out of some people going out into a field, trying to figure out if it should be 19 holes, 18 holes, 27 holes, 8 holes. And it was the game of the people. And I think because of all the things that golf brings, it's the only time I can go and try and network with someone at an event and have 5 minutes of their time. I can go try and grab coffee with someone and have an hour of their time. But to get with a CEO or to get with a person and spend 4.5 hours on a golf course with them, getting to know them, getting to see how they react, getting to hear their story and who they are as a person. As we've moved in such a transactional way of life, golf brings you back to really a relational moment with people.
Yeah. But here's where I challenge you. What did you just say? You had meetings with CEOs of companies.
Yes. But then at the same time, I go play a public course and I'm playing with a nonprofit leader who mobile showers and is figuring out what that next move is. I've played golf with the who's who's, and I've played golf with the who's who's of their community and their family, which I think is kind of a lot cooler. It's funny. I think people look at my Instagram or they'll see certain people that I've played with or things that I've done, and they're like, oh, this is probably cool. You really played with this person. This has to be your top 5. My top 2 people that I've played with, one was someone who works at HEB. So HEB is like, I'm not sure what the proper grocery store in New York is that everyone goes to and loves, but HEB is an experience. It is where you buy your groceries, but you also connect with, the people in your community. You can grab ice cream. You can get your birthday cake. It is the best place in Texas. And underneath that umbrella is Central Market. And I'm obsessed with Central Market as well. You used to go there after every big thing. Like after graduation, I was like, can we go to Central Market? And so I played with a manager at one of the stores from HEB. And then I also got to play with the CEO. And I was fangirling. Again, I've gotten to play with some really cool people that the world would think was like, oh, that has to be your top 10. Right. I'm like, no, this hits home because HEB is a part of my childhood and my grandmother. And that was a cake that she would give me every summer. So those moments exist with on the golf courses. You never know who you're going to walk and play with.
Okay.
But there is for sure this element that has existed for many years that is starting to change, of that it's for privileged people. It's super exclusive. And I think that has happened mainly because of knowledge. While a lot of people think the barrier is the private country club or that you need to know someone that's a part of the club or X, Y, and Z, I think the barrier is honestly people not sharing how to get in the game.
So I had no idea. I thought when you hear golf, you think club.
Yeah.
But you weren't daunted by that, right? Because I would assume that when you were dropped off, what do I do? Where do I go? You were not daunted by that sort of invisible feeling of being an outsider and like being scared off. What was that about you that sort of made you go the other way and say, I'm competitive and I'm going to beat you almost at your own game? Pardon the pun.
I definitely was daunted. I think there's so many moments, even playing on tour, where I'm crying. I don't feel like I fit in. I don't feel like I'm a part. And a lot of that came with the education. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I didn't know that you could write in for different things and you could make it your own. And I think we all, or I won't speak for everyone, but I feel like a lot of people don't do things because they don't feel like they fit in, but finding the things that fit me. I think that's how I made it through, was finding what parts of golf fit me and how can I make the things that I don't feel connected to, how can I make those things my own or create something else.
Can you give me an example of a moment like that? Because, that's something that I think is knowledge through experience. But for those who may not have A, the language to it, or B, the experience, what was one moment that could illustrate that? Because I think that's such a huge lesson and it's hard.
Yeah. One of the first moments I can think of is I played basketball. I had a really great high school basketball career, was actually recruited to go play at a really great D1 school. And so my basketball team would always laugh at me for playing golf. And that moment of getting them on the golf course and having some of my friends come out and going just to a range. I didn't even know a golf range existed that you could just walk, pay for a bucket balls, go hit. You don't even need your clubs. You can borrow a club there. You can rent a club. And so we're discovering some of these things at the same time. But the way that we laughed together, the way that they thought I was the best golfer ever and I was the worst golfer on the team, and just the introduction to something new, I knew that moment there's ways to create moments for people to feel like golf, that they have ownership of the game of golf. And so something that I do currently is called open tee times and run this course. And I've taken moments and things within the golf game. And for example, to even what you're saying earlier is open tee times last month. It's about connection versus competition. And so I have connection cards where people get to know one another. We had random people sign up. We had someone who is a photographer. We had someone that works at a retail store. We had a nonprofit leader. And then we had the referee that was doing the NBA finals, and he had a day off that showed up. And it was just like this random group of people, some that it was their first time playing golf, some that they've been playing golf their entire life, come together and be connected. But taking away this traditional scorecard and introducing something new for people to connect with one another, that's how I made golf my own. And then that's how I got to kind of deliver that. And that's how I get to deliver that to people, so it's not as frightening when they try it out.
That realization and then connection is huge. So you started this story by saying there were moments where you were crying because you felt like you didn't fit in. What was happening where you felt like you did? Because for me, I look at you, and I'm sure a lot of people would look at the success that you've had and understanding, or in some way, that there's been a lot of hard work and dedication and persistence, like that's a given. But I don't think I would fully understand the depths of what it feels like for someone like you. It's hard for me to understand that you wouldn't feel like you fit in. I mean, you're Alexis Belton, you know what I mean? Like, you're kicking ass on the green. Share one moment where you felt, where you were on the green, you didn't fit in, you were having a hard time, and what helped you make that switch?
Yeah. It's so funny. The first moment that comes into my mind was when I won my first long drive event. And I think being a female athlete really gives a different perspective into feeling like if you fit in or not. I think about my career in long drive. I always finish top 3. I use the standard club, which means most people use a longer club. I use the standard club because I was playing professional golf at the same time. And I had a lot of success in a really short amount of time. And if you take my stats, my ability, all those things, and you do the same thing for, let's say that sport would be like a football player, and you compare what I did in long drive to a rookie in the NFL or something like that, people would still be talking about that person. They would have all the...
You mean the guy?
The guy, yeah. That guy would, have all the stories in the world, have all the opportunities. It's changing now, but being a female athlete and being really good at something still didn't give you the momentum and platform that a lot of men have in order to make, the impact that I wanted to make. And I think one of the moments that I felt that was the first tour event that I did in long drive. I won. And I'll never forget holding the trophy and realizing there was no one else in the stands, maybe a couple of people, but really no one else in the stands that looked like me, that I didn't really have anybody to celebrate with. And I also didn't know what to do with this. So I didn't have the support to be on Golf Channel the next day to talk about it. I didn't have that support of how do we take this and make it what it is. But I would see counterparts that might not have been as successful, like having opportunity. The gap of it really truly is I just didn't know. I didn't know how to maneuver in this world. The switch was holding the trophy, realizing that nothing really came from that outside of a trophy. How do I make this moment meaningful for other people? Because it didn't mean anything. It felt like it didn't mean anything for me. And now I realize it meant everything to me. And so that's like a more recent moment of how do I now build the community for people to feel like they have a place in this world of golf?
Can you clarify what you just said? It went from a moment where it meant nothing to you to understanding it meant everything to you.
Yeah. It meant nothing. I thought that win wouldn't do anything for my life. I thought it would bring me the platform that I needed in order to do the things that I wanted to do, and so on and so forth. But I realized there just wasn't a lane for a Black woman who is a champion within the golf world. there wasn't that support that was already created. And now that moment meant everything to me because it was a moment that I realized, as I always say, like, I want to golf for good.
I gotcha.
I want to utilize golf to make impact
Yeah.
in other areas and within the game and in other areas as well. And golf be the vehicle to make the change.
Basically, you want to be that representation that you didn't have.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah. As like race, as gender, as personality, like I'm someone that I love to perform. If you've seen any golf, I know you're new to golf, but if you've seen any golf, it's like, and I'm like,
It's very quiet.
and so, yeah,
Okay.
there's even a place for personality. And I think those have been the things that motivated me after that win.
Did that realization of you holding the trophy and understanding that there was no one in the stands that looked like you, is it fair to say it sounds a little lonely?
Oh, super lonely. Yeah.
Okay. Was that a moment that hit you immediately, or was that something that slowly kind of sank in? And what was the catalyst that made you switch to understanding, okay, I'm realizing that I'm going to be that change?
I think there was a really cool moment where in Long Drive, there were some people of diverse backgrounds that really started to kind of hang out, latch on together, but we weren't at every event together. And so that made it difficult. But playing professional golf in 2019, 2020, all of us African-American girls got together and we had a group chat and we started just dialoguing and we're realizing that we have the same shared experiences. And sometimes you're at host families that you're like, man, I wish somebody would have told me this host family doesn't want me here.
Oh, wow.
You're in certain places in the country. And this is the best part about playing golf on tour is you really get to learn about America. You're in nowhere, Idaho, to New York, to upstate and the city. Like you're everywhere. And you get to learn the beauty of the US, but at the same time, it's super lonely. And so that changing point was definitely when now some of my best friends and I like started to collaborate and get on a group message and share what we know and what we don't know and how we find solutions.
Your understanding of community came from your lack of not having community in golf. Because you didn't have it, you understand the importance of it. And as I'm saying this, I feel like I'm kind of also drawing comparison to my own personal journey with community. And now that you're sort of plugged in, you're really gung-ho about it. God, who the hell says gung-ho anymore?
I loved it though. I was waiting for this, but it's okay.
Shucks, yeah.
You're really gung-ho about it.
Now that you've discovered your own community, how has that impacted your life? Can you tell me a moment that you realize, like, there are a community of outsiders?
This year and last year have been some of the most beautiful years of community for me from every aspect of my life. I think building the community of people that looked like me was important, but then the addition of diversity of age. Now I go and play golf with some people that are, I guess, was hit from the super senior tees, might we say. I play with wisdom. And even just diversity of race and gender. I'm loving my community because if there's something that I'm not familiar with or I don't know, there's somebody in my community that has an experience, the diversity of experience as well. And so I have learned now that I can ask for help. And I think that was the hardest part.
Okay.
Doing everything so long by yourself and having community, and it feels great, but they often are like, Alexis, why don't you ask us for help? Hey, you invited us to this thing, but you didn't invite us to be a part of it. And so now, even when it comes to like organizations like One and things like that, is I'm not just a part of it, but they are a part of me as well. And how do we function as a body?
That's a very distinct difference, though. But give me one conversation where you couldn't ask for help, because, again, for me, I'm looking at you going, You've had to train, you've had to have coaches. So how can you not know how to ask for help? Give me a conversation where you couldn't, and then where did you learn to?
Asking for help always felt like weakness, especially as an athlete. Like you just need to figure it out or toughen up. And I think too, the mental health journey really helped in revealing that actually vulnerability is your superpower. A great example of that is I don't know what type of sickness it was, but there was something that was going around and it had me down and out. I call it the fluvid. I don't know what it was.
That sounds like a bitch.
It was. And at first I was like, you're good. You're fine. You're okay. And then there was a moment like I thought I really need to get to a doctor. How do I drive myself to the doctor's office? And I get in my car and I have no energy to even hold my hands up. And I'm trying to do it. And a friend calls and they're like, hey, just want to see how you're doing, checking in. I had something told me that I need to call you. And I was like, I need help to get to the doctor's office. And our group chat was like, Alexis, don't you dare. First of all, as soon as you felt bad, you should have told me. And I think that was a moment where I realized I don't have to do everything on my own and I can be vulnerable with people so they can also help. Because if we're working together, if we're not all showing up as our best, then we can't really accomplish a lot. And so that was a big moment for me.
I think vulnerability still, there is a stigma attached to vulnerability. And I don't know what it's like in the athletic world. I would assume it's exacerbated by a million times. First of all, dude, you should not have been driving when you can't even hold the damn wheel. But mentally, that could have been like a one-off extreme. How did you retrain your brain to say vulnerability is actually a strength and asking for help doesn't make you weak?
A lot of it comes from, when I stopped playing professional golf, it was because of a mental health crisis that I was going through. And I thought I was the only one going through it. And I think when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we realize that there's a lot of people that feel the same way or that have been in the same shoes or that might experience at some point. And if people are my mission, and if I want to love people well, the only way to connect with people is to be vulnerable. There's not much depth in meeting someone and saying, hi, I'm Alexis Belton, 3-time world long jump champion. I've done amazing, great things. Who are you? And they're like, oh, I'm da-da-da-da. I always say the best resume. And every single time that I'm talking to a group of people or hosting or whatever that may look like, the intro is always this bio that is like, okay, who cares? Somebody might think it's really cool that I've won long drive events and they don't even know what long drive is. You just think it's cool because it's champion. But What I find really cool and people that I want to follow and journey with in life is when I think our resumes should be what our obituaries are. Like I want to follow someone and listen to someone that's like, hey, I'm Alexis Belton and I really, really, really struggle with these insecurities. But I know that my value is rooted in these things. And so therefore, that's what's given me the strength today to stand up and talk to you guys because we're one big fabric and I'm a part of this side and I need you and we need one another. And that's who I am. I'm a daughter. I'm a friend. I'm an aunt. And those are the things that people can resonate. And I think when we share those parts of our lives, that's when true connectivity happens.
Your sense of community could not have just come from your experiences with golf. We are better together and we are better as a community. And once we understand that we're all so much more than our resumes, and that's not what makes us, where did that come from for you, Alexis?
First and foremost, my family. My parents were always about how do we serve one another and how do we live in a village? I think that village mentality has definitely shifted. Like we're so isolated from family units to different things here, especially in the States. Oh. And so my mom was a family attorney. And it was crazy because our house was open for everyone. if you needed a place to stay, you could always stay with us. And so I had like siblings that stayed with us, and we went to school, we played basketball team together, all those different things. But I also learned so much from them as they were learning from me. And I think that was the first place, even though I probably still didn't understand what community is. I think I look back now and see that's the first part of it. I think the second part would definitely be my faith, like understanding that, life can't just be about me. Who are we serving, and what are we doing outside of ourselves is super, super important to me. And then that third moment is when I realized that nobody knows anything.
Wait, what?
When I realized nobody really knows anything. Like, why is
Tell
it?
me more.
Okay, so there was this moment that I had probably like high school, college, and we're all looking up to these people, and this person's the best. And are you coming to this lecture? And I'm like, okay, cool. Who's this guy? I'll listen to him. And then I realize, oh, y'all only think he's successful because he has money. We're being taught the total opposite thing in class. And so depending on your circumstance, you can be very successful in your respected thing, maybe because, you could be birthed into it. You could have worked hard. You could have done X, Y, and Z. But not every script fits the same person. And so I think that also really helped me to realize how in need I am to be surrounded by other people, and other people of thought, other people of personality, the whole list. I don't think we really even know what success is. Like, what is success and what is it to each person? But nobody really knows what they're doing in this life.
Well, that's for damn sure. I'll be the first one to kind of say that about myself. But I do think that definitions are something that I think as a society as a whole, and certainly as individuals, we need to take a hard look at. Because I think our definitions don't align. And when they don't align, we're basically talking about like two different things in the same conversation. I think that life is so demanding and it's so busy for all of us. We're just trying to like survive and eat and be able to, buy eggs and certainly gas. That's a whole nother thing right now. That we're not really taking the time to slow down and think about the millions of external messages that are being imposed on us every single second of the day. I think throughout this conversation, what I've also noticed is you've been able to step out and look at something and say, wait a minute, this is what is being told, but this isn't actually what is. So, not to speak in abstract form, right now, you just talked about like this teacher or whoever this speaker was that you wanted to see was only defined successful essentially because of wealth. But that doesn't necessarily mean success for you or in other areas. Like, so this ability to extract yourself from what I'm calling the matrix, where we're plugged into like, messages of what we should be, benchmarks of where we should be in our lives. What gave you the ability to step back and like break it apart so you can see more clearly?
I am very much so a why person. And I want to know that so I can relate better to the situation. I think I've also been growing up in an area where it is because it is. Well, who is? It is. We do it because everyone's always done it. It's like, it's so funny. My mom, traditional old school, like you turn a key to start the car. I guess there's a myth, or maybe it's a fact, that if you have too many keys on your keychain, that it'll mess up the engine. And so my mom subscribed to that forever. And so she comes to visit me one day, and I have a huge keychain that has my wallet on it, all the things. And she's like, Alexis, you really need to take a lot of that off of there because it's going to mess the engine up. And I go, push the starter. What are you talking about? I think we subscribe to things because they always have been. And I am more of a person that likes to ask questions. And so why has it been, and have things changed? And do we need to alter it so we can get whatever the solution was then, what's now the solution today? And I think that village mentality for me is so big. I think with the news today, I know everything that's going on overseas. I know everything that's going on in California. And oftentimes I don't know what's going on with my next door neighbor. And I think that for me is like, how do we solve, if we're going to solve problems, how do we go back to this thing of like, we take care of the people that are close to us, and then we take care of the community, and the community takes care of the city, and the city takes care of the state, and then it just all births out versus being so sporadic. There's moments where I'm crying and being overwhelmed because there's nothing that I can do in problems that are happening halfway around the world. But I'm forgetting about, my neighbor that has cancer.
So how do you manage that? Because I have trouble with that as well. Like, you get so overwhelmed and saturated. It's toxic, and you do need to manage your well-being because you can't move forward in anything if you're not well. So how do you manage that?
I think that I've really tried to center myself. I think to your point of we're on the go, go, go. How do I center back into better rhythms of life so I can first be taken care of? And then from there, community. And then as a community, how do we do one thing that can impact what's happening across the country? Or we have a friend in our community that just moved to Nairobi. And so now it's like, oh, we have someone in our community that is now part of a community that we can also support. I think that goes back to the importance of a diverse community.
For me, it's a diverse community is basically a very large bookstore with a lot of different books that you can sort of pick and choose. And it doesn't mean that you subscribe to all of the freaking books in front of you. It just means it's just things to think about. And some things will give you more food for thought and widen your perspective, while other things may challenge you. And some may change your mind or reinforce your opinion for the better or for worse, whatever. So I think diversity for me is super important. But I will also say this. I know that the podcast is called Reppin, and yes, we do talk a lot about race and gender and all that stuff. But I will be the first to say that I think race, gender representation in the traditional senses and DEI in general, it's not enough. We need to be able to see one another as human beings first, not based on what you do or look like. I also think it's really interesting. What I've noticed is how you break things down, curiosity, like why it is the way it is, in some ways align with strategy and the way you think. Your process of thinking is similar to, I would imagine, what golf teaches you. Like, okay, you have a ball behind a tree. I know enough to know that that's not good. And that's tough.
Right.
You know, what do you do? And that's kind of an analogy to life and how you approach things. It feels like the way you just generally think, your sense of curiosity, that's just you. Like, that's just a part of your DNA. And you're able to step back and break things down and say, well, what do I want to do with this? How do I move? That same sort of process is applicable to when you play golf.
Yes.
So when these two parts of you come together, what was the one lesson that you've taken with you and you've universally applied in your life?
There's a phrase that I always say on the golf course every time I hit a bad shot. And it's like, I can make birdie from there. I can make par from there. And I think that kind of wraps everything together, because if I take a moment after any situation to realize that my feelings are real, they might not be reliable to act on, but if I can first think of a positive outcome and then from there have a strategy to make it happen. If I do that, I'm going to have a better outcome than if I'm just either upset or because I used to throw clubs on a golf course. So
Shut
yeah,
up. Really? Did you?
I've broken.
You were the Jerry Springer of golf?
I have thrown a club. I have broken a club. That transition to basketball to golf was really difficult because I have personality, you know, like where does all this go? I can't be pent up. But I think learning how to manage that, and I think that's my approach to life as well. And when a curveball hits, when something happens, it could be something from a medical thing to a life thing to a work thing. It's, okay, how do I make birdie from there? How to make par from there? And how do I keep going?
It's a difficult thing to execute, though.
It is.
And activate, I think. Especially when you're so emotionally involved. I would imagine that is what makes you such a great athlete as well. With all of your work in community, and I know how driven you are with your organization, the Belton Drive, and also One, was there a conversation or something that happened to you that made you realize you are making a difference for someone?
That's a great question.
Thanks. Girl, you're not coming on to talk about golf here. You knew that. You knew that coming in.
It has been when someone tells me that they felt seen and known in a way that they might have never felt. And that could have been by simply having a conversation. And so if golf is that tool to make people feel seen and known, and if that's the platform I've been given, then I'll use that in different forms in order to continue that. Because it's the same thing that I want.
Great. Do you feel seen now? Or how do you feel from that moment of loneliness to now?
I feel seen and known by the people that is important to me. It kind of goes back to how, why, what, learning people's origin story and their capacity. Now I know sometimes when my brother sends me a text message that I don't think is funny, but he thinks is hilarious, that's him showing me love and that's him seeing me. I think that has changed every way of now being like, I'm seen, known, and loved to the core. The going phrase right now that's really interesting to me, whenever you walk into a store or even in the airline and someone's like, hey, how are you doing? I always say, I'm doing good. How are you? And I can't tell you how many times people go, oh my gosh, you're the first person that's ever said that. Getting off of a plane and telling the crew like, hey, I hope y'all have safe travels. And they're like, whoa, no one's ever said that to us. Like those are moments that I might not be their family member or their friend, but that's a moment that might have been needed.
Do you realize how much change you've made so far?
Not at all. No, not at all. The goal for me, and I think this has changed the way that I thought about success in a way, is how many seeds can I plant? And I might see some sprout, I might see some grow, I might see some bloom. But if I can have the ability to see a couple of sprouts, like that is the best. That would make my world. And I've seen little things here and there, and that encourages me.
So listen, I want to keep you, but I'm going to sign off for you, and then we're going to be a menace to society when you get to town. Let me know who you are and what you represent, Alexis.
Yeah, I am Alexis Nicole Belton, and I represent golfing for good, using your gifts to make the world a better place.
Big thanks to Alexis Belton for coming on and for sharing so many of her personal experiences. Go check out her work, her page, and the mission she's a part of with the One campaign. It's a reminder that access, opportunity, and dignity, it's worth building for everyone and everywhere. I'm going to have all of those links in the show notes for you. For me, this conversation really comes back to community. How much stronger we are when we build it and extend it to other people, not just as an idea, but something we actually live and do. And when that happens, it can hold you and others up when things get hard. And look, no matter where you are, who you are, or where you're listening from, whatever pressure you're carrying right now to be something or to show up a certain way, please know on this podcast, it's meant to be a community where you can be fully you, fully human, and being accepted as that. So if this episode resonated, share it with someone who needs it. Subscribe, leave a review. It really does help the show grow. And follow me on Instagram at Reppin_podcast. Send me a message. I love hearing from you. And check out Reppin Podcast on YouTube for clips and exclusives. And I hope you know by now you can listen wherever you get your podcasts. And you can watch this full conversation and others exclusively on Spotify. Thank you always for listening and always for your support. Reppin is a Suburban Outlaw Productions. Until next time, stand up and represent.
Rough and rugged.
Represent NY, hold it down.